Avengers! Assemble.
Hello everyone, thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books, I love talking about them, I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that have plot synopsis and character bios for these issues. So these are going to be older videos that I have re-edited and sort of put into one long video. So we're going to be doing the entire Avengers Under Siege from 1985. So we're going to be covering Avengers 273 through 277. This is where the Masters of Evil make their move and actually defeat the Avengers, and then the Avengers try to take back the mansion. This is one of the best Avengers storylines of all time. So I hope you enjoy this compilation, kind of putting them together as one long video. So I may, just bear with me. These videos are really old, so I did my best to try to edit the beginning and all that kind of stuff. So if it doesn't look too good, again, my forgiveness. I do this all by myself. I edit, I do everything, so that's why everything looks low budget. It's because it's low budget, because it's just me doing this when I can on my spare time. Anyway, enjoy this video. Avengers 273 through 277 from 1986, written by Roger Stern, pencils by John Buscema, and inks by Tom Palmer. Ultimately, we're going to look at the run on the Avengers called Under Siege. It's been reprinted a bunch of times. It begins in Avengers 273 and goes all the way to 277. There's a lot that happens, so I would love to cover the entire thing in one swell video, but I don't want to keep you guys here for hours. So we're probably just going to do Avengers 273. Depending on time, maybe we'll do 274 as well. So don't hold me to it, though. So in the Avengers, this is from 1986. During the 80s, Avengers was not the popular title that it became under Brian Bendis. This is the Marvel 25th anniversary cover, and all the issues that year had these design here. This is by John Romita, not the cover itself, just the design here. So every title for Marvel during that November of 1985, all of it contained all these things, and it of course had the Marvel 25th anniversary in there. There actually were much older than that. However, they chose to go from the time they became Marvel and started with the Fantastic Four and all that. So cool cover. So the issue starts in a bar, and Hercules is lifting all these people here. Here are our credits. Roger Stern is the writer. John Buscema did the breakdowns, and Tom Palmer did the finishes, which is the inks. Tom Palmer, rest in peace, and John Buscema, also rest in peace, were are great artists, but Tom Palmer, man oh man, his inking is very recognizable. He is one of the few inkers that you immediately recognize one of his pieces. Tom Palmer was notorious for using zipitones, and you can see here, and you can see it here on the table. And he had to do it by hand back in those days. Um, so the table eventually bursts, and everyone, of course, is having a good time. And they tell the barkeeper, "Hey, go get some more tables." And he's like, "That was solid oak. Do you know how much that cost?" And Hercules, of course, tells him the Avengers would reimburse him, and it was a wager that he had with this individual, which he won. And so he's buying all the drinks, and he asks him if all the Avengers are just like him. So he tells him about Captain America and Captain Marvel, who was Monica Rambeau during this time, and the Black Knight and Namor. Just a little bit of each here. The guy asks if that he heard that him and Namor didn't get along, and he tells him, "Oh, he's headstrong, but he's a good ally, and he'll miss him." And the guy says, "You mean he quit?" And he goes, "No, he's taking some personal time. He'll return." So you can kind of suspect a little bit as to what's going on here. So during this time, the Wasp was the leader of the Avengers, and Hercules says she's finishing up the term, and this guy is kind of pushing his button, saying, "What's it like taking orders from a woman? Does she make you sign in and out?" And she laughs. And he breaks the glass. First of all, you have to remember in context the time frame of this. This was the 80s, a lot of machismo, a lot of stuff. So he Hercules doesn't take it well, hits the guy. He goes out, and there's a truck coming. That guy behind him is saying he'll be killed, and he's like, "Oh my goodness, what have I done?" Because he, of course, lost his temper, and he's like, "He can't die because of me," and gets in the way of the truck, which of course dismantles the truck. Now, the dude that was driving inside should have gone BAM! So he basically would have killed the other dude. Hopefully he was wearing the seatbelt, but it was the 80s. Not everybody wore a seatbelt. So Hercules does stop this guy from getting killed and helps him up. And so he helps him up and notices that he's not hurt. And they check on the driver, and the guy that was wearing his seatbelt. And the owner says, "Now I got to pay for the glass." He's like, "None of you will bear the cost of my, his temper tantrum." So the dude was actually walking toward this shady looking van. So this guy here is saying he'll forget about me by the time he's done telling his tale. And this is Yellow Jacket, not the Yellow Jacket that you're used to, but this is a woman, not Hank Pym. And again, you see a lot of zipitones. You Tom Palmer, you'll be super familiar with him. He did a lot of issues as inker of Avengers. So this guy, of course, was the Wrecker, or is the Wrecker, and he's the leader of another group of villains called the Wrecking Crew. So, and you can see here he's wearing a microphone. So they report here, and this is Moonstone, and they said they also planted a bug in the bar. So, and of course, Baron Zemo is here as well. He's the one who was talking above here. So something is kind of going on here, and like I said, this story is really good. So he congratulates everyone on a job well done. Zemo asks why she was on monitor duties, and she had other tasks to be done, and she says that she was just stretching her legs for a bit, and she's wondering why he's so curious, if she's afraid that she'll learn about the secret plan of his. He doesn't say anything. He just points for her to go away, basically. Before she goes, she says, "I'll go," but she knows that her plan is crucial to whatever um, she's she's doing. So, and of course, now we get the inner monologue that was very famous during the 80s. And again, look at all the Zipatone. He just it's really cool. When I was young, I didn't know how. I thought they did, each one of those was just they were dabbing it. I had no idea how they did all this. So he thinks that Moonstone is the one that presents a direct challenge to his being the leader. But then the Wrecker, he says, if you keep him busy, give him some action, he'll basically toe the line. But he can't strike too soon against the Avengers, or he'll basically go through like his dad. He needs to take care of Captain America as well, and so he'll put up with Moonstone because they have to deal with Captain Marvel, who's the most powerful of the Avengers, he thinks. So speaking of Captain Marvel, so here's the Earth, and she's in the moon, just kind of uh, using her powers, just kind of exercising them. She goes through the moon, and she, of course, goes at the speed of light. So this is all happening very fast. She goes to Paris. She's gonna go there, orders the menu, and the guy, of course, recognizes her. So Baron Zemo did catch the high energy beam, so he knows that it's Captain Marvel and has to find a way to neutralize her. So Zemo interrupts her and says we have to deal with Captain Marvel right away, but she's, of course, says it's not ready yet. Look at all the Zipatone. Oh, it's very cool. He, more than anybody else, used it so much. I mean, it's everywhere here and here. Just amazing. So, what she's going to use this person here. His name is Blackout, and he's a paranoid individual, but she says that paranoia makes him easier to control, and she tells him to protect them, and he's like, protect. So he creates these energies called the Dark Force, and it absorbs everything. It's kind of like a black hole, but without the gravity. So everything that's in there is trapped in there. It's like from a pocket dimension, is sort of how they explain. And Zemo tries to use this powerful pistol of his, but it doesn't work. So she says that that's how they're going to get Captain Marvel. They're going to use the Blackout to keep her in there. And so, of course, Zemo says now she has me even more because she's got a weapon that only she can control. When suddenly there's this big sound and a tremor, and she thinks they're under attack. He says, nope, it's from the chamber. And of course, Mr. Hyde is fighting Pile Driver, who Pile Driver is also from the Wrecking Crew. Moonstone shows up and tells him, hey, we're all in this together. And he's like, you dare threaten me? She says she's trying to just tell him to listen to reason. And Mr. Hyde's like, nobody can tell me what to do. And of course, Nemo puts his hand on him. So he says, hey, save your strength for your enemies and go relax for a bit. And Moonstone's impressed how he was able to calm him down. So Zemo tells Moonstone to go back to the laboratory just to finish things up. She wonders how she was able to control it. Pile Driver says, did I do good? He had done as he asked, and Zemo says that he did fine. Of course, all this was done so Zemo's leadership wouldn't be questioned. So what it was is Pile Driver was meant to set up him, Mr. Hyde, and get him angry. And Zemo actually had a tranquilizer that used to calm him down, and thus securing that Moonstone won't um, try to take over. And so that night, the Black Knight and the Wasp, she's wearing this little dress, are going to some kind of high end club. Of course, the paparazzi are all there. So it's some kind of charity event, which is always kind of funny how celebrities do this. They like, look at us, look at us. Instead of donating, they just have to go through this thing to show how much they're giving, as if, that somehow made them better. But whatever, I digress. So the paparazzi there are taking pictures of them, and Black Knight's a little uncomfortable. So this reporter says, hey, is it true the Submariner quit? He says no. He's in a leave of absence. And Black Knight says, hey, where'd you hear that from? He says it was an anonymous tip, and then just starts asking more questions. And from behind, this guy taps and says, hey, take a chill pill. Of course, this is the Paladin. And if you have watched my Amazing Spider-Man that covers the Todd McFarlane run, he is part of that assassination plot storyline. So Zemo is watching the news, and of course he's the one that tipped about the Submariner. He says he knew she'd be taken aback by the news. And Paladin, of course, would kind of create a distraction. So he fixed his headband, says he made the modifications that he needed. Zemo questions, saying it even weighs the same, and he's like, it'll work. So Zemo puts it on. He asks if there's about Captain America, who he's been keeping tabs on, and he kind of tells him he was in Florida. And then Zemo wants everyone in the conference room immediately. So here are all the villains here. Let me see if I can recognize. I think this is Goliath, Moonstone, Titania, the Absorbing Man. Of course, you met Pile Driver, Thunderball, Bulldozer, Tiger Shark, I think. You saw Yellow Jacket, Mr. Hyde, the Wrecker, and here is the Fixer. And I think this is that Blackout guy. So everybody's questioning, why are they here? And Tiger Sharks, of course, says that to let him speak. Tells everybody that they've all been beaten by the Avengers, but alone. But what about together, if they all banded together? So he says the Avengers basically is because they stick together that they're able to beat him despite changing all these team members. And he says basically if the villains unite, they it'll basically get that element that the Avengers seem to have. It'll neutralize it. And together they also outnumber all the Avengers. So he says that after the Avengers, then the Fantastic Four and so forth, and asked if they will join him. Moonstone says she's grateful, but why should they listen to her? He has no powers, and of course he yells to Blackout to restrain her. And Blackout is listening to him, and he basically says that little headband, that circuitry that he put in there now allows him to control Blackout. He says leadership is his, and he's basically how much he hates Captain America is essentially why he's doing all this. She, of course, says, all right, she won't question his leadership anymore, and then has Blackout release her. So the villains decide to join Zemo, and Moonstone wants to hear more of his plan, and he basically says the total defeat and humiliation of the Avengers. So now we go to Avengers Mansion. So as you can see real quick here before I continue, the these comic books were packed. That is one thing that now today comic books just don't read like this anymore. Part of it is because there's these double page spreads, these single, there's so little. There's, you got to come up with a way to mix dialogue and art. And I'm not saying that making them wordy makes them better, but you got to have a story. And in the 60s through the early 90s, there was a lot of stories, but then Image happened and everything changed after Image. That was quite the event where it no longer became about the story. It was all the art, which is also important. They are comic books, but you got to have a balance between the two. So I digress again. So Jarvis is on monitor duty. Normally it would have been Hercules, but a woman called to go on a moonlit cruise. So Jarvis offered to help, and that was actually a trick from Zemo, it had said here. And the alarm comes in. He says someone's trying to break in, but the gate is omnium steel. And of course, the wreckers go through. But what's funny is, okay, so the gate, but I mean, you just jump the wall. I don't know. So, regardless, here come our villains, and the mansion's weapons come up. So the villains disable the weapons. Again, they're working together, so they're working as a team. And high above is where Zemo's at. So, Titania and the Absorbing Man wanted to know why they couldn't be in the assault. Zemo says, you have your orders. There's still much for them to do. The Fixer says someone's trying to broadcast an emergency alert, but he's jamming it. And he says, give the troops the location. And Jarvis is trying to tell everyone that the mansion's under attack, and in comes Mr. Hyde. He says, step away, and he'll only break one of his arms. Zemo and the Fixer arrive. So during this time, the government had sort of started to butt in with the Avengers, because trust me, if this was real, the government would do that, because that's what the governments do. They like to put their little paws into everything that they go. So they made the Avengers get rid of like the Quinjets and all that stuff. So and he says here that the villains have done quite a thorough job disabling everything, and so everything went as planned. And here they make a comment that says Hyde's easy, that they stopped him from removing the butler's arms and legs. So of course, the record says the Avengers Mansion belongs to the Masters of Evil. And Zemo says this will be the first of many. So we are looking today at Avengers 274. It is part of the Under Siege story arc back in 1986. It's one of my favorite classic Avengers story. I have the issues individually, not very good condition, because I read the heck out of them. I also have the trade paperback. So we got the cover by John Buscema and Tom Palmer. Tom Palmer is one of the most unique inkers out there. When you see a piece that he has inked, you can recognize him as the inker right away. He has a style that, unlike other inkers, um, like he brings his own. He I guess he makes the work his own, similar to when Bill Sienkiewicz or Todd McFarlane, when they ink something, they tend to bring in um, some of the stuff. Tom Palmer does too. I mean, he is so recognizable. Just looking at a work of art, you can tell. He's also notorious from bringing some zipatone. So I have the first part. So if you want to search, you can look for Avengers 273, and you should be able to find. I'm gonna try to get all these done ASAP. So as we left off, the Masters of Evils have taken over Avengers Mansion, and the Black Knight is coming. So they're making a reference that he didn't even notice the gates that they had installed, and Zemo says that due to his current emotional state, he's not preoccupied. So we got Baron Zemo and we got the Fixer here, and again, zipatones that Tom Palmer is notorious for. Both John Buscema and Tom Palmer have since passed away. And so Mark Ringwald passed away a long time ago. I believe he passed from cancer back in the early 2000s. So Baron Zemo tells everyone to get ready because they're about to get their first prey. So Black Knight is upset that Wanda, he's going into the mansion, and that Wanda didn't pay attention to him once the Paladin showed up. Real quick before I continue, again, zipatones. Tom Palmer. When I was young, I had no idea how they made these marks. I really honestly thought they inked every single little thing here, like yeah. So I was unaware of zipatones when I was young, but Palmer really puts them in there. So he notices the lights are off and that they're never off. Suddenly, Yellow Jacket fires at him and rushes in, and Black Knight tells him that they made a mistake coming here. And she says she only sees one mistake, or the only one making a mistake is him. And then through the wall comes Mr. Hyde, and he begins to just wail on him and beat him. And Yellow Jacket has to stop him and says, "No, we need him alive. We need to use him against the other Avengers." And Mr. Hyde, who is correct, he says it's a mistake to let your enemies live. So Hyde figures he'll get to kill him later. So she thinks, in the meantime, she's thinking here, wondering what'll happen. You know, Zemo's been able to keep his control, but what will happen if someone like Mr. Hyde decides they don't want to follow orders anymore? So they drop the Black Knight next to Jarvis. So, and Yellow Jacket gives Zemo some prizes, his sword and his helmet. The sword is supposed to be enchanted, and they all kind of start to celebrate a little bit. This is Tiger Shark here. This is Bulldozer. The Fixer, of course. Let's see, Thunderball. I'm sorry. This is Thunderball. This is Pile Driver, and then this is Bulldozer, I believe. and I'm missing this one, so I'm sure that his name will pop up. And then this is the Wrecker Goliath Moonstone here. So um, Baron Zemo warns them not to, not to celebrate too early. They need to make sure all the Avengers are eliminated before they can claim total victory. Again, look at the zipitones that Tom Palmer uses. He uses also a thick line, which I am a huge fan of. So, John Buscema is, if you may recognize his work, he was the from the beginning. He's been one of Marvel's most efficient in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Their kind of go-to guy. He, of course, is also most famously known for how to draw comics the Marvel way. So this is Monica Rambeau, who is also Captain Marvel at this time. A couple of things just real quick that I really love. Look at the shade here, just doing a little hatching to create the shade. And then instead of just heavy inkings for her shadow, just a little bit of hatching here. And a little bit of difference in the coloring, a little light blue. But those are just little subtleties that I really like. I also like this panel being at an angle. And she's reading the paper that there's been a change in interest rate, and she's saying if that would be the delaying that small business loan that she had applied for, and that was in issue 236. So she gets a message through her watch that says here, Wasp calling, something's up. I don't have time to explain. Get to the main assembly as fast as you can. Wasp out. So Captain Marvel says, that sounded mysterious, and wonders if it has something to do with the Submariner. So she puts up her costume out of the closet, and basically in the blink of an eye, because she is able to go the speed of light, ends up there with Jarvis and the Black Knight. And she's surprised to see them there like that. So Blackout, who was the other guy that I couldn't remember, goes and attacks her. And he is able to, I believe, is going to send her to that dimension where she can't escape. Blackout, of course, wants to get even for something that happened back in Avengers 237. And if you click on that link for that Marvel database that I'm sharing, you can actually go back and you can kind of take a look at what happened there, because we have not covered that. So, so she, of course, says that she's been encased into that dark force of his, and she's going to try and shift to get out into neutrinos, but she's not able to get out. And so here it says here the blackness folds up onto itself, taking Captain Marvel with it. During this time, there was a mandate, which I think is a very good mandate. Treat every comics as if it was somebody's first. So here he kind of gives the reader a quick synopsis. He's thankful that he's able to basically control Blackout, as explained in the previous issue that we covered here. So that way nobody will challenge his command. Baron Zemo basically explains that they used a voice simulator through the mansion's transmitter to broadcast the Wasp's own voice. So that's how they were able to basically trick Captain Marvel. So they're going to handle Hercules next, and then that should leave the Wasp and Captain America. And of course, he does his villain laugh, and Jarvis You can see him worried here. You can see the sweat real quick. Love, love the Zipatones here. And the change in color. It's just something you just don't see, did not see very often during that time. Klaus Jensen does use a lot of Zipatones as well. So at the mansion's main computer terminal, look at this. Just such all this circuitry. Man, all that would fit in an iPhone now. So they're Yellow Jacket's trying to break into the files, but the security safeguards, she's not able to get past them. So he, of course, says that it was all designed by Tony Stark, and you can't find a better engineer than him, except for himself. And of course, she tells him that Iron Man whipped him back in Iron Man 202, which he, of course, says that was pure luck. And he's going to give her a hand, which she, of course, tells him to keep his hands to herself. You can see she grabs him, hurts his thumb here. And of course, he says that she nearly broke the thumb. Zemo wants an update, and he says everything's secure. So the Fantastic Four is still out of the country, and he used the voice simulator to send the West Coast Avengers on a wild goose chase to Indonesia. And he believes it'll be hours before they are able to suspect anything, which pleases Zemo here, who is says that once they've had the revenge, the world will hear of their triumph and will fear the new masters of evil. So, and here we have the Wasp. She's at her New Jersey estate. She's thinking about the Paladin. Again, look at the shade. Just using the Zipatones. That's just really cool. So, of course, you hear the whoop, 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 whoop of the engines, and Captain America jumps off and hits the diving board and tells the Wasps that he's sorry to drop unannounced, but he believes they have a problem, and just love this little sequence here. So he basically explains that he had a run-in with a trapster and Whirlwind in the Carolinas. They're in custody, but thought she'd be interested because she's had the Whirlwind's had some kind of sick infatuation for her, but she's surprised that he, went all the way there by the helicopter. And by the way, I love the interconnection of the titles here, like, trying to sell. So it tells you it's in Captain America 324 on sale now, so that you go get it. And he says, well, I try to reach the through the Avengers mansion, and they weren't very interested. And she says, who? Was it Hercules? And she says, it was you. And she goes, that's impossible. She hasn't been to the mansion in a couple of days. And he says, whoever it was sounded just like her. So the two of them, of course, are concerned that someone was able to tap their communication channels. Or even worse, taken over the mansion. Basically here, take anything of value and trash the rest. And of course, they have the Porcupine's armor in display, like some kind of trophy. And it says here, since Captain America 315. So Thunderbolt comes in, and they're real quick. Again, Zipatones, just really quick. There's wondering why she's not guarding her pet zombie, which is Blackout, and she says she's entitled to some loot, just like the rest of them. Unbeknownst to them, the Wasp is listening in and watching them. She can't believe that these villains have joined forces. Real quick, I always comment, you just don't see these marks anymore. These lines. This started when Jim Lee started drawing and Tom McFarlane and everybody else kind of, the rules were changed again. So then, of course, the Alex Rosses started to come. So comic books really have evolved. You just don't see these mark making anymore, or at least not as frequent. She's says she's seen a lot of these villains, but is not able to see any of the other Avengers. And she eventually finds the Black Knight and Jarvis, and is able to remove Jarvis's gag that they put in his mouth. Goodness gracious, I was struggling with that word. Which I do find funny that they have a gag on him. I'm like, what? They're the only ones in there. It's not like he can yell from help, from inside the mansion. So Jarvis tells her that it was Zemo and everything kind of that happened, and she thought Zemo was already dead. And he, of course, tells him this is the new Zemo, the son of the original. She's going to die him, but of course Jarvis says there's no time for that. Hercules will be returning soon, and she has to stop him before the trap is set. So when she drops him off, he says, it was a most enjoyable cruise, thank you. And she makes a call from her car phone. There were no cell phones during that time. And tells them that he's been deposited inside Avengers Mansion because she was paid a fee to do that. So Hercules is, of course, drunk. So Captain America, of course, grabs him. Or he doesn't realize that it's Captain America, but they're walking toward this van here, and he can tell how drunk he is, but just by the smell. It is amazing how much story they pack into these stories. I mean, this is one book, this is one comic book. It's just amazing how much story is in here. Nowadays, everything is as a 6-part story is most likely would be like a 2-parter at most. There's so much waste. Double page splashes that are just, that they're not there for anything. It just, it's to me, I'm not trying to be that old man that complains about the current state of comic books. I'm just saying how much story is packed into one single issue. You just really hardly ever see that anymore. So, of course, Captain America tells Hercules that the Masters of Evil have taken over. And Captain America is calling all the reserve Avengers, letting them know that this is an emergency. And so everything kind of gets explained without being explained, just as moments later. So, of course, Hercules, or the Wasp, says, we need to plan and wait for reinforcements. Hercules, of course, does not like that because he is basically a male chauvinist. So he's like, I've humored your commands in weeks, but no more. Hercules needs no reinforcements, and he breaks out of the van the way only Hercules can break out. And he thinks, when this is done, he'll demand new leadership. So, and he busts into the Avengers Mansion. And so Tiger Shark is there because he originally wanted to fight Namor, but since Namor's not there, he's going to fight Hercules. And of course, Tiger Shark is quite strong himself, so off they go. So Zemo wonders how Hercules was able to get so far in the mansion, and Fixer, of course, tells him there's more to worry about because here comes Captain America and the Wasp. Man, it is amazing how packed these comic books are. Again, I'm at 20 minutes, and we're about halfway through. Goodness gracious. I'll see if I can speed it up here. So Zemo says to get Blackout ready to seal off the mansion on his command. The Fixer says that's not a problem. And here come Cap and the Wasp. But as they're coming, the traps are being set. So, and I love this little one that just catches her. So, Cap is trying to use his shield. So, and she uses her wasp sting. And now comes another more, like a high Sonics basically to take him out. So, and he asks Wasp to go get help. So, she was not able to take any more, and it takes Captain America inside, and she's outside. So, the police have arrived. She asked about Captain America, but they said that he's not there. And then they see the mansion now covered in Blackout's little, whatever, his little realm. So Moonstone is impressed because he could barely cover a small car when they first started. And now he's covering the entire thing. And then she's wonders about, now that Zemo controls him, if she would, she won't be able to take over the leadership like she was planning on. So Hercules finally gets rid of Tiger Shark. I love this part. You're not even worthy to bathe at his feet. So, funny. And so Mr. Hyde grabs whatever this was and throws him at Hercules and smacks him with it. I really hate these sandal things. I just don't think that's very super heroic. So they get him trapped, surrounding him with this, and then everybody just starts wailing on Hercules. But he escapes. And so Hercules, of course, tells them that they're all going to regret this. So, and from behind him comes Goliath, who grabs him by the ankles here and then slams him and slams him again. So, and keeps hitting him and hitting him and hitting him. And so he's down, so everybody now starts to wail on him. And so outside, the Wasp is trying to get in, but nothing seems to be working. And so Captain America is now brought forth before Zemo, who kicks him, and that he's going to get the revenge that he so wanted and pay him back for his father. Captain America tells him it doesn't matter, so long as one of the Avengers lives, that they can't, he hasn't won, basically. Love, they put these little quills on him, which they would just draw them like this. But when John Cassidy took over Captain America, he really changed how Captain America is drawn. And it's actually my favorite incarnation of Captain America. So whenever I draw him, I do try to draw them out. And so Zemo tells him that how easy it was to take over them, kind of just going back through the plan that, or of everything that sort of happened here. And by the way, one of your teammates has just expired, meaning Hercules, expired meaning dead, and that it won't be the last. And he is taken out for the world to see. And so they're calling the paramedics, and she tells him to hurry because he can't find a pulse. And next issue, even a god can die. So we are going to be looking at Avengers 275 from 1986. This is one of the best Avengers stories out there. So I have been covering this particular story from the beginning. So you it starts in 273. So I've got 273 and 74 out there. So here we go. So we're picking up sort of where we left off. So the first thing we do is we get a news bulletin. Now, one of the things that I really like about Marvel in this period is Jim Shooter, who was the editor in chief, had a mandate. Every comic can be somebody's first comic book. So you got to recap things, because if you see this issue for the first time in a supermarket, because keep in mind, comic books mostly were sold at supermarkets, convenience stores like 7-Eleven. I mean, I used to go to the Circle K when I lived in Florida to go look and browse comic books. Supermarket, like Publix used to have a thing with a where you could look at comic books. I mean, there was so much. There were actual bookstores in malls, and they carried comic books. So you never knew. So you always got a bit of a recap. So here, the Avengers are dealing with some kind of crisis, is basically what they're saying. And that area where the Avengers are sort of located is under martial law. So we got the military here. So he says here the Avengers mansion has disappeared behind some kind of black enclosure. So, and then of course we're showing Hercules as he is being taken to the hospital. They don't look like they're rushing him though. They're just kind of walking. You think that they would have, and I get it, but they probably could have done a thing where they're actually rushing him and had the people sort of running. So anyway, so as we see here, Hercules is been injured again. I've covered the previous two issues, so give that a check that out. So this is essentially where the Masters of Evil come out triumphant. So here we got Moonstone and Moonstone and Blackout. So I don't think I saw credits. Let me just make sure. No credits yet. So, John Buscema is the penciler. I'm sure we'll get to it. Tom Palmer, rest in peace, is the inker. One of the things I love about Palmer is his use of zipitones. He uses zipitones a lot, everywhere. When I was young, I didn't know how they made all these marks. I honestly thought he did every dot. So this, if you ever want to know, now you can do it digitally, but if you ever want to see how they did this back in the old days, there's actually videos on YouTube that shows you that painful process of laying zipitones. So Blackout is sort of under control from both Baron Zemo and Moonstone. So she tells him to keep going and that he trusts her. So the Wrecking Crew and some of the Masters of Evil are discovered some of Tony Stark's old workshops, because Avengers Mansion used to be his house before he donated it. So here we got Baron Zemo and Mr. Hyde. And here we get a brief soundbite here that Tiger Shark, they found a stolen cab, and it was the Tiger Shark. And Mr. Hyde says Zemo was right, they couldn't stop him. And Zemo tells them that they had no further use of him, but his departure does allow them to keep, because of the confusion in the population. So Yellow Jacket here, this is a different Yellow Jacket. This isn't Hank Pym. Can't believe that these two actually enjoy seeing the city squirm. And Zemo asks Yellow Jacket to tell the Fixer that he's ready to begin the final phase, and she of course says, "Yes, Baron, right away," as opposed to like, "Why can't you call him yourself?" So anyway, so Captain America has been captured, and here's the Black Knight, and of course we've got Jarvis here. So Zemo's gonna leave, and he enjoys seeing Captain America as helpless as Jarvis and the Black Knight. Captain America tells him it's not over. He says no, but soon, and the entire world will learn how the Masters of Evil defeated the mighty Avengers. So, real quick, I don't know who would call themselves the Masters of Evil. It just, I don't know, but it's comic books, but it's still kind of funny. Like, I could see the Masters or something like that, but the Masters of Evil, uh, who knows? Real quick, one of the things I love about Tom Palmer is his brush work. He works on and inks on brushes. It's just so nice to see. And then of course here's those zipatones, like I said, that he uses. And there the dude loves his zipatones. Puts them everywhere. So and okay, so now we get our title page. So um we're in the hospital with Hercules. So they're escorting the Wasp out, and then they're working on him. So, and then here is our credits. This doctor says he doesn't like the facial bruises, and they should call the neurosurgeon, and the nurse says that she's on the way. Mark Granwald has also passed, so Roger Stern is still with us. Both John Buscema and Tom Palmer are no longer with us, so rest in peace, both of them. And then Mark Grenwald is also deceased, so but Jim Shooter's still alive, so good for him. So this is the Wasp here. So this gentleman says he's sorry to bother her, but they need the patient's full name and his next of kin. And he says, "Oh, his father's Zeus, his mother's not living." And the dude's like, "Is there a number where Mr. Zeus can be reached?" So underneath we have Ant-Man, who says that he doubts he has a phone. This Ant-Man is Scott Lang. It is not Hank Pym. So he said that he heard through the radio that something crazy was going on, so he's here to help. The Wasp, he offers help, but the Wasp's a little startled because he looks so much like Hank Pym. And if you remember, and I have covered the issue where Hank Pym kind of was going through a psychotic breakdown and ended up slapping her. So she's a little taken aback. Anyway, he asks that she call him Ant-Man. He doesn't want the world to know that it's Scott Lang. And she apologizes and tells him that the Avengers are beyond help. And, of course, she's going to give a recap because, again, we also have to establish new readers. So there's a lot of recaps that are done in traditional comic books during this era for newer people. She basically says that the Masters of Evil have taken over the Avengers mansion. They beat Hercules almost to death. Something's happened to Captain Marvel. They can't find her. And Captain America, the Black Knight, and Jarvis have all been captured. And she doesn't know what is happening to them. I love the brushwork. Just exquisite. So Baron Zemo is making a video for the people, and he's saying how they brought the Avengers to their knee, and of course Captain America says that's enough. Let Jarvis and the Black Knight go. They need medical attention, and they're not important to him, meaning Zemo, because they both know that he's the one that they want. Zemo tells him he is correct. His friends are important to Captain America, which is why he's not going to let him go. He's going live to see them die, and none of them are gonna get out of here alive. And Zemo slaps poor helpless Jarvis, who's tied up. You think that they don't tie him, give him a fair, a little bit of a fair fight. Not that it would be, but Captain America tells him that the Wasp is still out there and she'll organize another team and they'll go after them. Again, I love the ink. Look at this heavy brush. Just love it. Zemo tells Fixer to stop the tape, edit out the outburst, and send a copy to the media. Captain America asks Zemo how he survived being killed by the Red Skull's daughter, and he says he'll never know. And then Fixer does ask him, "Hey, how did you survive?" And he says to lower his voice. So we're gonna have a little recap from Captain America 289 and 90, where this story occurred. And what happened is Sin was attacking him to create like psychically, and she was inducing a cerebral hemorrhage. But when he collapsed, she stopped, so that didn't kill her. So since he also has that metal headband, it was able to blunt some of the psychic powers. So, and of course he gets away. And I do apologize. It was 298 through 301 when this happened. So that's when the original story was done. So it's kind of hard to see here, but the ship, the Avengers were coming to search for Captain America, so he was able to get out just in time before the Avengers got there and found him. I love this Absorbing Man calling Zemo. Like, they do this. Of course, this is done for the characters. Again, you need to establish who the characters are. So, they're written in a way so that people, if they know that this is the Absorbing Man. So it's a way to introduce who these characters are. And I know that it seems funny or kind of wonky because people don't speak like that, but it's done for those purposes. So the Absorbing Man calls Zemo, and Zemo, of course, it's a TV. I mean, goodness gracious. So he says Zemo here. He says that Spider-Man, which is in Amazing Spider-Man 283 here, kept them from making contact with the new recruit, and he wants to know if he wants them to return to the Avengers Mansion. He tells them no, that he has another job for them. So he thinks about the Wasp and the way Captain America believes in her. So he says to get to the hospital there and basically take care of her once and for all. So we're in that dimension that Blackout sent Captain Marvel. This is, if you haven't seen any other videos, Captain Marvel during this time was Monica Rambeau. And she'd been she was Captain Marvel at this time. So it wasn't Carol Danvers. She says she kind of knows where she's at, but she says she's never experienced anything like this before. And as she's going, she sees like a brief light. So she goes toward it, but then it's gone. And she just becomes kind of panics and becomes a little frustrated, and soon the darkness overwhelms her. So then back at the hospital here, we got the Wasp and Ant-Man. She says it's the same hospital she was taken back from Avengers 14 when she almost was killed when they were battling Count Nefaria. Look how kind of tall they make. I mean, he's got to be like 8 feet tall there. So Ant-Man tells the Wasp that not to blame herself, that she's not responsible for what's happening. She says, of course, it's her fault. She's responsible. And Zemo was able to bypass their security because her procedures were not good. So she, of course, blames herself for everyone being hurt. And the doctor comes out and says they did all they could, but Hercules, unfortunately, passed away. Look at all these zipatones here. Oh, just amazing here. And this is a nice little quiet panel here. Again, look at the ink. Just, man, Tom Palmer can teach people a lot, even today. And by the way, this on Ant-Man is zipatones that he also used. Wasp says it's all over. Ant-Man tells her she can't give up. She said her and Captain America had tried to raise all the reserve Avengers. No one was able to answer the call. And she asked Ant-Man if he can call the Fantastic Four. She just can't do it and starts breaking down and crying. The Wasp asks the nurse if she could be alone with Hercules for a bit, and the nurse obliges. And she thinks that, he knew that he resented taking orders from her, but she never thought that it would lead to his death. And says if Captain America would have been in charge, he would have listened and this wouldn't have happened. And maybe he'd still be alive. And then suddenly the heart monitor begins to fluctuate. Again, look at all the zipatones. Zipatones. So she calls and he's still alive. And the doctors rush in. The doctor said they'd never seen a heartbeat so slow, about 1 beat every 10 minutes. She asks if he can be revived. He says they don't know, but now at least there's a chance. And she waits outside. Ant-Man says he was not able to reach the Fantastic Four. They were out in a mission. And she says it's okay, there's perhaps hope. And suddenly the earthquake shakes. Or an earthquake begins to shake. So Wasp says that it's coming from outside, and suddenly, boom. So we can guess as to who's responsible for this here. Again, look at all these zipatones. Dude had to lay them down and then cut them off to make the lettering here. So it was, of course, Titania and the Absorbing Man causing a ruckus. And I've covered Titania's origin in Secret Wars, so feel free to check that out. And the police arrive, and of course, first thing they do is they start shooting. Who are these people? They're dressed in, I don't know. Maybe it was just a bad coloring job. Could be cops too. So the Absorbing Man changes into like a metal cover or body, and then uses his what is that? His ball and chain here. And then they break in to the hospital, and of course they want to make sure that the Avengers that are in the hospital are dead. Like they use the zipatones here. And Ant-Man says that he doesn't know who the woman is, and she says it's Titania. She's nearly as strong as She-Hulk. I love this comment here. He says, the Absorbing Man's bounced Thor around. We have as much chance of stopping those two as Spielberg had of winning an Oscar. And then she says, Scott, if not us, then who? Of course, this is all before Spielberg actually has won 2 Academy Awards. So, back at the mansion, Zemo is watching the news with who says that the two that were terrorizing JFK Airport are now at the hospital, and the police are helpless. And Zemo laughs, asks Captain America if he still thinks that the Wasp can stop them. And Captain America says, "Don't count her out yet." Zemo found this picture of Captain America and Bucky that he had in his locker, and he, of course, tears it, trying to cause some more damage to his ego. Of course, during this time, Bucky was believed dead. Of course, we all know that Bucky is now the Winter Soldier. So, of course, they bring other relics that Captain America had. This is supposed to be his original shield, which Mr. Hyde destroys. And Captain America just looks and says, "I'll remember this." And Zemo's like, nothing will break his spirit. So Zemo says, gag him and start with the butler. Hyde says he's going to make him pay for everything that he has done to them, and he's going to eventually kill Captain America, but first he's going to start with his friends. And he grabs the butler and removes his gag, and he wants Captain America to hear him scream, and you can see the horrors in the eyes, and he just begins to beat on poor defenseless old Jarvis. And the Black Knight begins to awaken as he hears the screams. And he hears Jarvis, and he's got to try to get loose, and wonders where his sword is. Of course, his sword and Captain America's shield are in an energy field, it says here, with the Fixer. Fixer's trying to examine, because both the shield and the sword are essentially indestructible. And Zemo tells him that he can examine them later. Zemo tells him that the Avengers' main computer hasn't been able to be hacked by Yellow Jacket, so they basically want the Fixer to do it. So Zemo says that it's going to take a little effort to squash the forces that surround the mansion, and it'll allow them time to muster up additional troops, so that for him to assist Yellow Jacket to remove the memory circuits for later study. Of course, he means hard drive, but not in the 80s, probably not too much of technical language. And Fixer says he's happy to help such a talented young lady. Of course, she's creeped out by them, but doesn't have a choice because Zemo gave the order. And back at the hospital, you can see everyone's sort of running for cover here. And the Wasp and Ant-Man shrink themselves and go toward them. And of course, the Titania and the Absorbing Man don't see them. See again all the zipatones that are used. So the Wasp comes out and uses her stingray to hit, and he turns human again. And Ant-Man goes up and turns to regular size and uses it to punch him. And Titania doesn't like that, so he shrinks and she ends up hitting the wall. So the Absorbing Man gets energy. He absorbs the energy from this junction box, and he's gonna take it out on the heroes. And here comes Titania to go get Hercules, and Ant-Man commands the ants to go and attack Titania. Look how big these ants are. So, God, even at scale, they'd still be tiny. It's just funny. All right. So he breaks this alcohol and absorbs it to um, get the ants off her. They realize that turning into a non-solid disorients him. So as he was getting back, he uses they use a little bit of um, that little flying ant to bite him, and of course with her sting to knock him out. And Titania ends up grabbing the wasp, but the Ant-Man ends up saving her with a canister of gas. So now she ends up shrunk, and the wasp blasts her with her sting power. So here comes the absorbing man. He's gonna end up uh, getting Hercules, but you can see Ant-Man is coming toward him, and so he's gonna touch him and take his strength, but the wasp gets on top of him here and uses some more of her powers and ends up finally knocking him down. And here comes Ant-Man then bringing Titania. The doctor then gives him the good news that even though Hercules is still in a coma, his strength is returning and they think that he'll live, which of course makes them happy. And we get here to finally our last panel here. The Wasp basically says, now comes the hard part. They need to get control back of the mansion, and now it's their turn. So next issue, Revenge. It should have said Avenge because it is the Avengers. I think they missed it there, but we are going to be looking at Avengers number 276 from 1986. We have been covering this story arc called Under Siege. So I have the other ones available. I believe it was a 6-issue. It's about a 6-issue story arc. It started in Avengers 273, and we've got 2 issues left here. So here we go. So throughout this whole time, we haven't had Thor, and Thor is showing up here. I love it. So John Buscema is the penciler, and Tom Palmer is the inker. Now, Tom Palmer is one of the most distinctive inkers in history. You can immediately tell when he inks anyone, and you go, oh, Tom Palmer inked him. John Buscema has a beautiful line, but Tom Palmer, who uses a nice thick brush, just brings this to another freaking level. Another thing that Tom Palmer uses are zipatones, and you can see him using the straight line here, and then the dots here, and then different dots here, and just to create some shading and things like that. Tom Palmer, rest in peace, both him and John Buscema. Neither one is with us anymore. Just superb artists, but Tom Palmer is so distinctive. There's some other inkers that are very distinctive too, but mostly because they're pencilers. Like, for example, Mark Teixeira, he's an artist. Period. He just brings out everything. Bill Sinkovich is also another one, but man, oh man, you can put Tom Palmer whenever, if anybody, and you can go, oh yeah. So, all right. So we've seen the Masters of Evil kind of take it to the Avengers. So this is the Avengers now fighting back. So if you remember, Hercules has been in a coma, and Ant-Man, who is not Hank Pym, is Scott Lang, and the Wasp are there. So Ant-Man is grilling the cops for not being there when Absorbing Man and Titania had attacked. Wasp says they did all they could. And this sergeant here is asking her if she knows why they had attacked, and she says that they were a part of a terrorist group out to destroy the Avengers, the Masters of Evil. Roger Stern is the writer. And here we got our credits with John Buscema basically providing the breakdowns and Tom Palmer sort of doing the heavy lifting as the finisher. So a breakdown, the difference between breakdown and pencils is a breakdown are just very loose sketches, and a finisher basically finishes the drawing, like as it says. So they do not just the inking rendering, but getting all the details done. The penciler basically is just giving them a guide. So she explains. So basically, we're gonna get a recap of stuff that's already happened. So I'm just going to sort of kind of move on here from those 3 panels here. Here, the doctor comes in and says that Hercules is still critical, but he's stabilizing. He's never seen anyone like that sustain injuries like he did and live. He says it's almost like, he's the Hercules of mythology. And Wasp says he is. And then she asks to be excused. Ant-Man and Wasp shrink down and off they go. They're going to go get some help. And here I love the surprising. So, again, some zipatones there. So we're back in Avengers Mansion, and Captain America and the Black Knight are watching the beatdown of Jarvis, who's screaming while Mr. Hyde is beating him. So they're not so much showing the beating, but you get the sense here. And Mr. Hyde is saying, "Don't pass out yet, old man. Scream more. I want the heroes to know what awaits them." So Black Knight says he needs his sword so he can stop him from killing Jarvis, but he can't find it. There's a mystic bond between them, and no matter how much he concentrates, he's unable to get the sword. Turns out, of course, that the sword and Captain America's shield are in some kind of energy field and unreachable. So, and outside, of course, it's got this dark energy that they're using from that character called Blackout here. The soldiers here, they've tried to even use a bazooka, but nothing can penetrate that, and that they may bring an airstrike. And of course, this soldier says, "In Manhattan, that's crazy." So in the command center, the Wasp is in there, and the whoever the commander tells them that it'll take hours for an armored division to get there, and aerial assault could be launched sooner, but such a move in such a densely populated area would be unthinkable, and says Zemo has them over a barrel. And he asks, "What was it that you called it?" And the Wasp says, "Dark Force, Colonel Jordan." So it's a colonel. I love how they have the colonel smoking a pipe, very old-fashioned. They didn't do that in the 80s, I'm quite sure, but they're still referencing the World War II days, I would imagine. Anyway, the Wasp says, "Let the Avengers handle it. They have expertise and experience at handling such a threats," and then he doesn't need to bother with the soldiers. And she says, after all, it is their facility that's being seized. And the colonel says he's putting her in an awkward position because he's responsible for this operation. Eventually, he's convinced and says, "We'll try it your way," and asks her what they need. And then, of course, it says moments later. The soldier here thinks this is Hank Pym and says that he's been a radio man for 5 years and he's never seen anybody hook up a satellite comlink that fast. He, of course, corrects him, saying he's not Hank Pym. He's retired now, and give him the costume and just to call him Ant-Man. So the Wasp is calling Thor, leaving the message of Sigurd Jarlson. That was Thor's alter ego during this time. I've also have been doing Walt Simonson's run on Thor. Feel free to check that out. You can see how he became Sigurd Jarlson. So she's leaving him a message here saying that they need his help. And here she's thinking they need everyone's help. And she wishes she knew what happened to Captain Marvel. Which, of course, we go to her. So Captain Marvel says there's no end to the darkness. It goes on and on forever. It does not seem like she'll escape it, but then she decides that she better not give up and remembers, that she gets sort of like explaining it to the reader. I mean, this is why it's done. So a little exposition here, but basically remembering how they were trapped at the at the Avengers mansion, how she's encased in the Dark Force, and now she's trapped in there. And so again, going kind of back, to giving a recap. So we will just kind of move on. Here she sees another light, similar to the one she saw last issue, and she decides to go toward that light source. It might be a way out. And now here it just says in a California waterfront here. So this character is called the Shroud, and he's going after this bad guy here. And so he points a gun at him, and he controls the dark, and suddenly there's a light here, and Captain Marvel comes out, and then while the Shroud, while he's distracted by Captain Marvel, the Shroud hits the bad guy and asks Captain Marvel if she's okay. She recognizes the Shroud here. It says they met in issue 241 and asks where she is, and he says it's San Francisco. He doesn't know how she got there, but that he came out from her. And she says, I was trapped in a dimension of darkness and there was a light. So the Shroud must have called that darkness, and when he did, she had seen him calling it, so I was able to get out. So now we're in New York. So we have Dr. Druid here, and this guy's giving him his itinerary. And of course, there's a news report on the what's going on with the Avengers, and he thinks that he's had a buzzing in his head about a half hour, and he wonders if the Avengers are some way connected, especially now with the mystery all over the news. And he says perhaps if he clears his mind, he may be able to concentrate. And of course, he can hear the Black Knight concentrating, trying to get, and he says, he's being held captive. So the assistant here asks, what are you doing? And he says, changing. And he says, hey, changing, why? None of your appearances call for formal attire. And he walks out now, dressed in his costume. And he says, my appointments will have to be rescheduled, Henshaw. Some things are more important than promoting a new book. He has an old debt to repay. So real quick, back to Dr. Druid. Dr. Druid is an old character, even predates all the other Marvel, a lot of them, except for, those that came throughout World War II and stuff like that, like Captain America and stuff. But he's from 1961, so his first appearance was in Amazing Adventures #1. So he's been around for a while, but it's just one of those, he's not used very often. So Ant-Man tells the Wasp he wasn't able to reach anyone, none of the West Coast Avengers. And sunspot activities keeping him from reaching the Black Panther in Africa, which it's hilarious. But she says she hasn't had luck in the local level too. The Fantastic Four are out of town. The Vision, the Scarlet Witch are off on vacation. Like, really, they're not going to cancel their vacation for this. And the Falcon's down with the flu. So he asks, what do we do now? Look for Spider-Man, Daredevil, anyone who might help. And he says, and if we can't, then she says, then they're on their own. So suddenly, Captain Marvel shows up. Yes, she was Captain Marvel during this time. I know that she goes by Photon now, but she was Captain Marvel during this time. So they're glad to see her, and it kind of gives the everything that happened. So and then Thor shows up because he received the message. So, and it says, of course, this story takes place between pages 5 and 7 of Thor 373. So we have not gotten to Thor 373 yet, where I'm covering it. So, all right. So he introduces himself to Ant-Man, and off they go here. These stories are so dense. I wish I could do 2 issues at a time, but how these stories are so dense. So, all right. This soldier says there's no change in the cube, and this guy's thinking what could be going on, and they wonder what that thing is made out of. Inside we have Moonstone and Blackout. Blackout is like under control. So she goes, we trust you to protect us with your barrier. Do you trust me? And Blackout says yes. And she asks, more than Zemo? More than Zemo? And she says no, trust Zemo. And of course she curses, which is the kind of like in cartoons where they go or something like that, or it's how they would depict cursing without cursing. So she of course thinks that if she could break Zemo's hold over him, the Masters of Evil could be hers to lead. I don't know. I don't see how people would call themselves the Masters of Evil. What a name. All right. So here, the Wreckers are looking through. This is Pile Driver and this is Goliath, asking if they find anything, and he's like, nothing worth stealing. So, and then this is Thunderball, and then that's Bulldozer, and this is why they put their names here so that people know who they are. That's how they would introduce it to the reader. So, and there's nothing to steal. And so someone's talking to them off panel here. Look at the two of Earth's mightiest heroes. Ha! Of course, it's Mr. Hyde, who's got a beaten up Jarvis here. He says Zemo was right. You fell easily before our superior numbers, and you couldn't even save this old fool. And now you guys will also die. And if you notice just how quickly the story moves, it's they don't do those today now. There's a little bit more room for the art to breathe, but at the same token, the story is not as condensed. So Zemo tells Fixer to be careful with those hard drives. Back then, they were kept on these discs that had, they could easily be damaged. So a Fixer tells him not to worry. And then the lights go out. And they think Fixer did it. He's like, I didn't do this. So Zemo tells him to find the cause of the outage and correct it. And he, of course, says, right away, Baron. So Yellow Jacket points at Captain America's shield. They, of course, know that without the barrier, that even though the shield is still there, the Black Knight's sword is missing, which of course the Black Knight was able to get it. And Hyde is like, who turned off the lights? He's like, it doesn't matter. Darkness will not spare you, Avengers. And then Captain America hits him, and then the Black Knight hits him, and then Captain America hits him, and then Black Knight hits him. So they're getting even for Jarvis and for themselves for kind of getting beat up. And then he's like, goes after them. You can see the Black Knight trips him with his own sword. He ends up hitting the wall or is that the floor? I don't know. But then, because he's super strong, So um, he gets up angry, and you can see him tossing everything around him. And suddenly Captain Marvel shows up. She says she's not gonna get his chance to um, do what he had threatened to do. And here comes the Wasp from that hole that Captain Marvel made, and then uses her sting powers to hit him in the eyes and blind him. He, of course, is like, "I'm gonna kill you," and he's just stumbling around. Ends up hitting Thor, and I love it. Thor just stands there, and he falls unconscious. So, all right. So, Captain America has Jarvis. He says he's alive, but he's taken a terrible uh, beating. And Thor says, "Did Hyde do this?" Captain America says, "Yes, under Zemo's orders." And he says, "Then they both must pay dearly." Of course, Yellow Jacket overhears. Again, some zipatones here. So, Yellow Jacket's gonna tell Baron Zemo, and he now knows Thor and Captain Marvel, and he wonders how she managed to escape their trap, and says that their arrival puts them in jeopardy, and they have to depart. She says, "What about the fixers?" And Zemo's like, "He can defend himself." And even though she doesn't like the fixer, she wonders how Zemo can be so over someone who is helping him. And she realizes Zemo would drop any of them in a second without any hesitation. So outside, here comes Dr. Druid, and he touches this and says this substance is from another world. He can sense it, um, and knows that another mind is controlling it. And he uses his own telepathy to try and reach out to Blackout, which allows him to um, walk in as Blackout opens up a little portion of it. Meanwhile, the Fixer's still working on this, and Ant-Man comes from below, makes himself regular size, and hits him. So he drags him out, asks about Jarvis. Captain America says it's no good. So Thor says he needs medical attention, um, and his injuries are extremely um, serious. He says moving him through that tunnel that Captain Marvel made would be too risky. And so Ant-Man says the only way to get him out is then to go through the mansion and through all the people that are there. So Black Knight says that, or sorry, not Black Knight. Wasp says they have to deal with them, but Jarvis' safety comes first, and for him and the Black Knight to rig up a stretcher. And she also tells Captain America to that Black Knight also needs medical attention, and wants Thor and uh, Captain America to take the lead. The Wasp was in charge of the Avengers during this time. They all kind of voted. So, all right. So Captain Marvel arrives and says the underground levels are clear, but there's trouble waiting. And of course, on the first floor. So here come the wreckers. So they're waiting for people to come up. Here comes Captain America, and he jumps out of the way. And then Thor throws his hammer, hits this guy. So, and then Thor uses lightning from his hammer and does some kind of trick that I've never really seen him do. It's probably from the 60s or things like that. But yeah, looks I don't know. Is he electrocuting them or putting them in a force field? If he's electrocuting them, then yeah, I've seen him do that. But so yeah, that's what he must have done. So I thought he was putting them like on some kind of force field or something. So The wrecking crew is down, and Captain America says, "Look out!" And here comes Goliath, who grabs Thor, Odin's blood, as he likes to say. He says that he'll be able to beat Thor the same way Hercules did, and when they're through with him, we'll see how tough Captain America is without the shield. So Dr. Druid is sort of like Jean Grey, telekinetic. So he's using like his mind telekinetically to go up here because he feels that Blackout is up there, and of course, there he is with Moonstone. And then Moonstone asks him why did he drop the barrier, and he appears to be in a trance. Captain Marvel shows up, and then a Blackout hits her, and so she's gonna go ahead and get away, and find a place to hide. So Captain Marvel hits Blackout in the neck, knocking him down, and off she goes to go after Moonstone. Dr. Druid is impressed, and here comes Captain Marvel going after Moonstone. So she's trying to think of how she could possibly get away, and Captain Marvel's kind of zipping around her, and as she zips around, she creates like some kind of energy fields anyway, pushes her toward that cliff there, and she ends up hitting her head and knocking her out. And so Zemo's gonna go up. You can see he's got, although he had it already in a little bit, Captain America's shield. He says, go get ready for the launch. He's gonna go get Blackstone or Blackout and Moonstone. She says, yep. And she says those two must still be useful, or he would have just left without them. And when he walks out, he sees Dr. Druid with Blackout. He shoots Dr. Druid and helps Blackout out. And he says, on your feet, enemies are around us. And he's like, enemies? And he says, yes, one must have struck you down, but you're in good hands now. So here Captain Marvel is looking for Moonstone and tells her not to move. She must have broken her neck. And he says, I thought you were gonna that she was gonna kill her. As they're talking, Moonstone tells him he had lost control of Blackout and realizes that Zemo's the one that was in charge of Blackout, and we end the issue with Zemo, love the Zipatones, telling Blackout that he can save the day for them and defeat the enemies. You can send them away, mansion and all, into the Dark Force dimension. And of course, Blackout says, yes, kind of question mark, and at the same time, exclamation point. So, all right, so we are hitting the last part of the Under Siege storyline. Avengers 277 from 1986. Great cover by John Buscema and Tom Palmer. Great stuff. Baron Zemo and Captain America, all the Avengers and the Masters of Evil are down. What an absolute great cover here. I have the original issues of this. So, here we go. The price of victory. And so, we see here Goliath has captured Thor. Not bad, Thor. You and Captain America really took the Wrecker and his buddies by surprise. I'm not so easy, though, am I? And so, here we have our credits. Roger Stern is the writer. John Buscema doing breakdowns. That means that he just did pencil roughs and let Tom Palmer basically complete the issue. Ever since I became Goliath, I've been itching to face you, Thunder God. I need I needed help to ace Hercules, but I bet I can kill you all by myself. So, you fancy yourself a slayer of gods? As Thor hits him with the hammer. Mortal, your ignorance dwarfs your size. Hercules yet clings to life as he punches him. And I have ever defied the eternal sleep. So, the wrecker here. Thor's pounding Goliath into the ground. He must have forgotten all about me. Come on, big guy, just hold him still for a second and I'll jump him. But Captain America knocks him down. So now the Wrecker and Captain America are going to fight. I love Tom Palmer. Rest in peace, as well as John Buscema. The writer Roger Stern is still alive. Love the inking. I'm such a huge fan of Tom Palmer Jr. So the Wrecker, of course, is angry because he says that Captain America has made his crew look like chumps too many times. So Captain America says that the Wrecker's so fast. And he remembers that when Thor knocked out the wrecking crew with his lightning, he said that he'd drawn their power away through the Wrecker. And now it seems like he's 4 times more strong and he has his hands full. So Jarvis is still down after that beating that he had received. Ant-Man, this is Ant-Man is Scott something. I forgot. Anyway, Scott Lang. So he tells her that I'm sorry. So he tells him that the pulse is low, and the Black Knight says, "Wish I could say the same for the ceiling. Sounds like Thor and Cap are having a little trouble upstairs. It's time we give them a hand." And the Wasp says, "I'll see to that, Knight. Ant-Man needs your help with Jarvis." Sorry, that whole panel was a little confusing. That was my fault. So the Black Knight says he disagrees with her, that he's going with her. And she says he's badly beaten, has a mild concussion. Hercules is already in a coma. She doesn't want to lose him. So he's like, "Oh really? I didn't think you cared, Wasp." And of course, you gotta go to the other issues to see exactly what the problem between them is. Anyway, he says that if he can stand, he can fight. And she says, "All right." So Ant-Man says that he needs a doctor. So Black Knight apologizes to the Wasp, and she tells him to skip it. They got other things to worry about, and sees that this stairwell is blocked. And she uses her power, and he uses his ebony sword to clear the rubble. So Dane realizes that the Wasp really doesn't need him. She's plenty strong, and she says something's moving. Of course, it's Thor battling Goliath. So John Buscema, he is so good. I also, one of the other things I love about Tom Palmer is his use of all these halftones that you'll notice all throughout. He just he's very liberal with them. He just puts them wherever he feels that. Tom Palmer was such a great illustrator, man. He's so good. If I had to have an inker, he would have been my first choice. Klaus Janson, my second choice. I just love the black thick lines. Tom Palmer is just, you can just tell, like when he inks something, you absolutely can tell. I don't know what it is, whether it's the boldness or whatever, but when you see an illustration, you know exactly he's the inker. So All right, so here's again with the half tones. So, his arm goes through. He takes it out. He sees Ant-Man or Black Knight and the Wasp. He's angry. He's just gonna level the building to kill him if he needs to. And Thor throws a hammer at him. So Thor tells the Wasp that he's going to basically keep Goliath busy so that she can go help Captain America. And Goliath is his. So Thor's so awesome. So all right, so here we go. And he brought the roof down and it collapsed on him. So Captain America says, I hope the staircase was left standing. Captain Marvel reported from her scouting mission that Baron Zemo was on his way to the hangar deck. And Zemo must be stopped before, and then suddenly, here comes the wrecker again. I was going to kill you fast, he says, but now I'm going to make it slow. You hear me? You're going to eat this bar. Hold it, mister. You ain't done with me that easy. So, elsewhere in the mansion, Baron Zemo tells Yellow Jacket, prepare a flyer for immediate launch. I'll gather up Blackout and Moonstone. And so when Baron Zemo goes up, there's Dr. Druid, I believe, is his name. And so when he walks out, he says, the bear is down. Who is this rogue stranger? Where is Moonstone? And shoots him from the back because, hey, villains. So he grabs Blackout, tells him there's enemies all around us, and Blackout's like, enemies? Yes, one must have struck you down, but you are in good hands now. I am here. So, all right. Yellow Jackets here says radio engines, navigational computer, everything's a big nothing. I'm barely getting enough power to light the cabin. It's as if the control system had been cut. Baron Zemo says, Yellow Jacket, come in. This is an emergency. And then he's like, that woman, why doesn't she answer me? Unless she can't. And so Zemo says, Blackout, we need your power. Yes, Blackout, you can save the day for us. You can defeat our enemies. You can send them away, mansion and all, into the Dark Force dimension. And he's like, yes. And so Dr. Druid wakes up and he's like, no, he must not. And he telepathically speaks with Blackout and says, listen to me, Zemo is not your friend. Zemo doesn't care about you. Love this. Just the eyes are very close together, kind of very ominous. He cares only about your space warping powers. Zemo is using you, Blackout. Do you want to be used? And he's like, no. And then Zemo's like, what is wrong? He's like, get away from me. Get away. You're not my friend. You're like all the others who imprisoned me. You imprisoned my mind, yes, but no more. No more. And Zemo's like, something snapped his conditioning. I must reestablish control. And Zemo's like, you don't know what you're saying, Blackout. Trust me. Trust and obey, he says. So the Wrecker then continues fighting with Captain America. Captain America kicks him. Wrecker's like, was that supposed to hurt? Your Avengers buddies may think you're hot stuff, but to me you're just another sap in a suit. And so without your fancy pants shield, you're hardly... And suddenly, here comes Thor and Goliath. Be of stout heart, Cap. Assistance is on the way. You're the one who'll need assistance. Thor, watch out. Goliath is getting bigger. So, bigger, yes, I can grow much bigger if that's what it takes to destroy you. So all of a sudden, boom. Cap's like, good lord, he smashed through the 3rd floor, and that level was especially reinforced to support our Quinjets. and so bringing down another. And so suddenly, um, Yellow Jacket was inside that ship, and she falls with it. And so here comes the Wasp. Oh, by the way, just they're making just mention that Black Knight stayed down, and so she's going to basically annoy the Wrecker. Cap punches him, um, and Thor is like, "I have faced bigger foes than you, Goliath. I have felled the dread storm giants of Niflheim, and I shall fell you as well." And so Cap uses the distraction and hits the Wrecker, and Goliath ends up falling on top of him. At the same time, the Army Rangers are coming in to the mansion. "Captain America, sir, we're here to help you secure the mansion." And he stops him there. He says, "One step further, and you'll secure the space for yourself in the infirmary." And then they look down and see that the floor is gone. So, coming from outside the ship is Yellow Jacket. And Captain America speaks to her and says, "If you tried to escape in that ship, you were wasting your time. Captain Marvel found it while scouting your positions and slagged most of the wiring. I suggest that." And she's like, "Save your breath. I know when I'm beat." And she takes off her helmet and tosses it. And so, Captain Marvel here, this is Monica Rambeau, who was Captain Marvel at this time with Moonstone. And Moonstone, of course, is down. Says here, she tells her, "Don't try to move, your neck may be broken." And Moonstone's like, "Perfect, just perfect. Not only do I lose control of Blackout, I lose control of myself in the bargain." She says, "What do you mean you lost control of Blackout? Didn't you make him warp me away into another dimension?" And she's like, "No, Zemo did that. He dominates Blackout now." And she's like, "Zemo? Oh, Lord." So, Zemo continues to struggle with Blackout. "Oh, baby Blackout, my headband cybernetic web is keyed to your own brainwaves. You must do as I say." And he's like, "No, I won't be used by you or anyone. I'll fight you. I'll fight the world if I have to." And Dr. Druid says, "Blackout, beware. I cannot help you further until I fight off this paralysis. You're subjecting yourself to tremendous psychic strain. There could be life-threatening effects. Run if you must." And it's like, "No, I won't run anymore. I will resist." And so Zemo's like, "Idiot, you are nothing without my guidance. You cannot resist me. I am your master." And she's like, "No," and he falls, and he has died. So Dr. Druid says, "A massive cerebral hemorrhage. Death was near instantaneous." And he's like, "Oh, look at all the half-tones that he uses. But the Needlers should have kept you paralyzed for hours. You must be responsible for this. Somehow you forced Blackout to defy me." He's like, "No, I merely unshackled his mind. Once free, it was Blackout's own decision to resist you. Who are you? You're no Avenger, true. Such is not my honor, but I owe the Avengers a great debt," he says. "You'll pay that debt with your life." And Captain Marvel says, "Don't bet on it. It's over, Zemo. The Avengers are mopping up what's left of your gang right now. You've had it." And so he tries to shoot her, but of course she kind of made a light, so the bullet just went past her. And so he keeps shooting her, but it doesn't work, and she melts his guns. "Your time's run out, Zemo." And he grabs Captain America's shield. "Get away from me." She's like, "You can't hide behind Cap's shield. You're through." "No, I cannot accept defeat. It cannot end this way," Zemo says. And Captain America arrives. "For what, Zemo? You just might be right." And the Wasp says, "Look, it's Dr. Druid. What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Trying to help, dear lady, though not as much as I'd hoped." And so he tells Captain America tells Captain Marvel to go with the Wasp and leave Zemo to him. And so they're gonna go one on one now. Captain America says, "It's just you and me, the way it should have been from the start." All right, and then he's like, "You sent your allies away. You handed me victory. I'll slay you with your own shield." And Cap was like, "No, you won't." So, swine, I'll destroy you. The pain you brought my family must be returned 100-fold. So, Zemo, I'm fed up hearing about your family, says Cap. You think I haven't known pain? And so he tells him about Bucky. And he was the only family I had, and punches him. So, tells him about how Hercules is still recovering. And he's like, yes, and still not enough. I wanted to break you, Captain, but you wouldn't crack. Why? And Captain America's like, I've known torture, Zemo. I've endured the worst the Third Reich had to offer. If there's one thing life has taught me is to never give up. So, when you had me bound and gagged, even when you forced me to watch Mr. Hyde torture poor Jarvis, I clung to the hope that you could be stopped, your crimes avenged. And now that vengeance is mine. As he punches him again. Great. Just how dynamic. So, you blame me for the destruction of your family, Zemo, but you never forced your father. But I never forced your father to serve Hitler's Reich. Whatever madness he suffered was a consequence of his own action. You lie. He was a good man, a genius. It was you who ruined his life. You drove him mad. And he throws the shield, and Cap catches it. Your father took part in Nazi atrocities. I only tried to stop him. It's a shame his madness had to live on in you. But now at last it's over. Is it, Captain? Will you kill me as you murdered my family? He says. I never killed your father, Zemo. He died in a rock slide triggered by his own weaponry when he tried to kill me. Even his death was his own fault. Liar! As he goes toward him, and Cap once again just wallops him. And he loses balance. He's like, give me your hand. And he says no, and he's like, boom. And Nemo is apparently dead, but it's comic books. We know he comes back. And so Captain America walks away. Great sequence there. So they've captured all the Masters of Evil. We got a reporter kind of saying everything. They're carrying Jarvis. They're taking the Black Knight. They ask if the Wasp has a comment. She says, just that the Avengers have ended a major threat to public safety. I'll issue a more public statement later. Right now I'm busy. So they're taking Black out here. And she says that the paramedics have found Moonstone, and that it was a broken leg, but that there's little spinal cord damage. So she'll be back. And so Cap is now, again, look at the halftones, kind of down, and Captain Marvel comes and says, it calls out for him and says, I didn't think it would hurt, Monica. Zemo took pictures from my footlocker and tore them up before my eyes. But it didn't matter. Not then. The Avengers were in danger. Lives were at stake. For all I cared, Zemo might have been ripping up old train schedules. But now, and he cries. It was the only photo I ever had of my mother. She didn't like having her picture taken, and now gone. Trashed like everything else. And so, look at me. Jarvis and the Black Knight were both severely beaten. Hercules in a coma. They could have been killed. Blackout was killed. And I'm crying over some old papers and photos. Of course, we know it's more than that. Sentimentality. And she basically says the same thing. Photos are little pieces of the past. Don't feel guilty or ashamed. it was a big loss for him. So I hope you enjoyed this collection. And basically, it ends saying we have to help each other salvage what we can
by Roger Stern,
from the past and rebuild to the
Buscema,
future.
and Tom
He
Palmer.
says, "You're right, Monica. Come on,
It's a really
let's
good
get out
run.
of here." So
Like and subscribe. I do
thus
thank you
ends
so much
Under
for
Siege.
listening.
So
I really appreciate
hope
this.
you enjoyed
This
it.
is- I do this just because I like it.
Um,
This isn't,
it's a great
you know,
story.
I'm not really a YouTuber
Very
or anything like
these,
that. I just do this for fun, sharing the stories that
stories
I really
in the
like. So
60s, 70s,
even, you know, I do have
and
a dorky
80s
voice,
were
but
very
it's okay.
condensed, very packed. Before the image guys
hope you
kind of
liked
just
it.
made it everything about the
Goodbye.
pretty pictures and no
Thanks for
story.
listening.
So